This is Anthony Kaiser reporting to you from Robert L. Bland Middle School on May 4th, 2016 with your space weather report. I'll also be telling you about what space weather is and how it affects you. I'll also take a look at your forecast in just a moment. Let's start off with space weather. What in the world is it? Space weather describes the dynamic energy conditions in the environment just outside the Earth's outer atmosphere. Space weather is very similar to the climate conditions that occur here on Earth, but of course, they're in space. Space weather includes solar flares, coronal mass ejections, high-speed solar wind, and solar energetic particles, and all of these have involvement with the sun. So, what do you see when you look at the sun? If you look at the sun, you'll probably see a ball of gas burning and distributing light. You'll also feel the radiant heat, but the sun does a lot more than that. The sun bathes the Earth and the rest of the solar system in electrically charged particles and magnetic fields. So how do these charged particles and magnetic fields affect us? Well, most of modern society relies on technology. Admit it, we all do. Most of our technology, such as phones, radios, and even internet, are susceptible to the extremes of space weather. Strong electrical currents driven along the Earth's surface during auroral events disrupt electrical power grids, causing a loss in connection to space. All of these are caused by auroral events. Now you're probably wondering, what are auroral events? Auroral events are bright lights that are pleasing to the eye from down here on Earth, commonly known as the northern lights. These currents release charged particles and magnetic fields. Most auroras are commonly known as the northern lights, which can be viewed in the northern elevation or in places such as Alaska or Canada. Now, moving on to the next topic, I will be explaining about solar flares, what they are and what they do. A solar flare is an intense burst of radiation coming from the release of magnetic energy associated with sunspots. Solar flares are in fact our solar system's biggest explosive events. From Earth, they are seen as bright areas on the sun that can last from minutes to hours. We typically see a solar flare by the light it releases at almost every wavelength on the light spectrum. Flares are commonly monitored in X-rays. Previously stated that solar flares are associated with sunspots. What are sunspots and what do they do? We are about to find them. Sunspots are dark areas on the surface of the sun that contain magnetic fields and are constantly shifting. A moderately sized sunspot is about the size of the Earth. Sunspots form in different periods of days or weeks. They occur when strong magnetic fields emerge through the solar surface and allow the area to cool down slightly from a background value of 6,000 degrees Celsius to about 4,500 degrees Celsius. So if all this space weather is going on and can really mess with Earth, what are we doing to keep things in check? Well, NASA quite recently, in fact, March 12th of last year, launched a satellite into the Earth's orbit to study how the Earth is affected during solar storms, and is using that info better to predict space weather to keep our world in perfect order. Solar storms are rated on the severity scale of R1 to R5, R1 being minor, to a more severe storm being rated at R5 with severe effects. According to NASA, R5s are likely to only happen up to once every 11 years. So we use these charts to determine radio blackouts, solar radiation, and geomagnetic storm impacts. And now for the current space weather forecast. In the last 24 hours, no radio blackout impacts, solar radiation storms, or geomagnetic storm impacts have been observed. But later this week, there's a 5% chance of an R1 to R2 rated geomagnetic storm impact. Well, Earthlings, it looks like we aren't going to have any interruptions in power supply or cellular connections over the next few days. That just about ties everything up. In today's report, I have talked about the basics of solar weather, how it affects us here on Earth, and what NASA is doing to predict and protect us from solar flares, auroras, and more. This has been Anthony Kaiser with your space weather forecast on May 5th, 2016, signing off.